I mean, we talked about about the movie as kind of an anti-chivalry movie, in the sense that, or like a re-examination of chivalry, of the chivalric code, and what was interesting to us was this idea that movies in general tend to overlook women, and what if we made a movie that was from 3 different perspectives, and the first 2 were male perspectives, and the women just only existed in the male stories when they were manifested by the men to kind of, for whatever the men needed them for, whatever adulation the men needed, they could kind of manifest it to women. But other than that, the women were just completely relegated to the background and completely ignored, only to flip the whole thing in the 3rd act and reveal this whole world that had been entirely overlooked. And in our headiest moments, as we were kind of conceiving it, we were thinking, well, how can we implicate the audience, in this, to have them think, wow, I haven't even noticed for 2 acts of this movie that these women have been entirely ignored because I'm so acculturated myself to seeing movies like this. So that was kind of one of the ambitions of the.
I can say something now.
Please.
I've collected my thoughts.
Thank God.
I mean, The Last Duel is about chivalry and gender, and what one thinks chivalry is in this movie especially is vanity and pride and jealousy and revenge. And it's really not about protecting the woman at all. It's about winning a duel and saving face. And the Last Duel is about gender because the females have no identity, no agency, no rights. They're property of their fathers, then they're property of their husbands who are old enough to be their fathers. So it says a lot about, the disparity in gender. There's no gender equality.
That's particularly kind of insidious because the chivalric code wrapped itself in the veil of, being protective of women and, putting them on this sort of ostensibly a pedestal, a sort of like they're, my daughter just read Tale of Two Cities, and we were talking about it, and she said, well, Dickens employs the classic device where he, frames the women only as these, pure symbols of nature, or, like, kind of like she's very tuned into this, the hypocrisy inherent in this. Like, you're on the one hand, you're saying, oh, well, these women are sort of elevated, they're better than us, which allows the men to feel good about the way they're treating them, when in fact, they're ignoring and undermining the very basic humanity.
Our kids are not that smart.
There is only one question that matters. Do you swear on your life that what you say is true?
In employing the different perspectives, we were very careful, and there was quite a bit of discussion around not ever turning this into a he said, she said, or a both sidesism type of. We were very clear. Ridley was very clear, and the writing team was very clear about this. The idea that everyone who sees this movie and everyone who made this movie understands that she is telling the truth. The only person who doesn't is Adam Driver's character, Jacques Legris. And to us, it was a much more interesting thing to study how somebody could do something so horrible and not realize it because of his acculturation. Salute.
Thank you.
Because of his acculturation, because of his experience and his understanding of the world, and because of the system and the culture he lived in, and because of all of the institutions validating his experience and his belief, and telling him that he could do no wrong, that he could actually do something so heinous and wrong and not even understand that he'd done it. And that was a much more interesting thing to explore than a bad mustache twisting evil person sneaking in the window and willfully committing an act that they knew was wrong, because that allows the audience to go, oh, that's a bad person, they're nothing like me. Whereas what we hope is that people come out, and particularly with Ben and I talked a lot about men watching this movie and reflecting on their own behavior and telling them, well, I wonder if there are times where I didn't really see what was going on. Not to, obviously, hopefully not to this degree, but I didn't see people in for who they really were. I didn't, you know, we're all prisoners of our subjective experience, but, you know, maybe hopefully, you know, the movie leads to interesting discussions or reflections.
And if anybody if anybody thinks The Last Duel is a he said, she said movie, they are not looking at it carefully.
I was a good wife. And then was judged and shamed by my country.
We wanted The Last Duel to be a movie that would make people feel something. And I think that's always the goal, in particular with this movie, because it's about people who don't see or recognize even the basic humanity of others, in particular women. Not to mention at the time, you know, the whole peasantry class and so on, a society that was so rigidly hierarchical, and that hierarchy was rooted in gender and class and ancestry, where only a very narrow slice of people had the opportunity to even advance themselves or have any kind of life where they were respected by others. We wanted to show, I think, or at least we were mindful of, you know, the basic need to be, you know, to actually see others for who they are, and to recognize that all human beings deserve respect and the same opportunity to flourish and care for their families and be happy. And that was denied to a whole segment of the population, and in fact in many ways continues to be much more difficult for people, is an obvious fact. So, you know, we didn't want to teach a lesson in that. We didn't think that we had discovered that. We simply want to tell a story about an extraordinary woman who did incredible things, who we think, you know, I mean, look, you just benefit from. A great story is a great story. Her story is a great story. That it happens to be a true story makes it even better, because the audience just then knows, oh my God, this is real. This took place. And that only adds to the power of your storytelling. And really what we, I think, wanted was just to hope that it would be good, because if it was good, it would affect people and create some empathy and compassion in the audience.
Penalty for bearing false witness is that you are to be burned alive.
I will not be silent.
E aí, não vai me dizer que você ainda não está inscrito no canal do Metrópolis, né? Clique já no ícone vermelho e também no sininho, porque aí a gente te avisa quando entrar um vídeo novo. E claro, deixe seu like se você gostou do vídeo.